welcome to our lesson 3 of the topic trigonometry. So we are still focusing on solving trigonometric equations, and now for this case we have come up with a subtopic of finding angles. Is that okay? We saw first how to use the quadrants. We saw how to find values of tan, sine and cos if given the range and the sign of one of the trigonometric ratio. Now we are back to find so we are looking at now finding angles. This is so essential because you will never pass a trigonometric ratio, a trigonometric number fully if you don't know how to get angles, because that is always the end part on the number. Okay, so before we look at that, I want us to note something. Note, we have it that sine x and the cos x, they are both always between -1 and 1. So we cannot have the sine x or cos x. So this is not x, it is cos x and sine x. They are both always between -1 and the positive what? And the positive 1. Are you getting that? They are always both. This is a cos sine x. So they can't go between that, beyond that. So you cannot tell me that you have cos x equals to 4. Find the x. There x has no roots. Is that okay? Or there are no answers for that. So cos x or sin x, that value is always supposed to be between -1 and 1, not beyond that, not less than -1 and not greater than +1. Okay, so I want us to proceed. So finding angles, we are going to first look at the first part. When the angle is a single angle. Is that okay? Is a single angle with the coefficient 1. With coefficient 1. Coefficient with coefficient 1. The handwriting may be poor, but good. What I'm writing is what I'm speaking. So with the coefficient 1. So if coefficient 1 meaning if I have cos x, the angle is x and is a single angle and it has a coefficient 1. Our coefficient is just that number in front of the unknown, and it is 1 multiplying x, which is x. Is that okay? Or even if for sine x, or even if for tan x, just the angle is x, or theta, or m, or k, anything. The angle I told you, don't cram x, it can change. Is that okay? Okay, so let us proceed. So someone will say, we are looking at the first case, solve or find the angles. Solve sine x equals to -3 over 4. Are you getting that? -3 over what? Over 4. For x lies between 0 degrees and 360 degrees inclusive. When someone puts the word inclusive, means that 0 degrees and 360 degrees can be answers also. So long as they are obtained, they can also be what? Answers. In case this says exclusive, then 0 degrees and 360, they are not inclusive. So this range, someone can express it in terms of mathematical. Says 0 inclusive means it is there. Are you seeing it? So that is the sum of that range. Okay, now I want to solve that equation there. If I'm to solve that equation to find the angles there, definitely we are all aware that we have sine x as -3 over 4. So we're going to have our x as sine inverse of 3 over 4. Are you getting that? That's what we have. Sine inverse of -3 over 4. Now what I want you to note here, please and please, when you are placing on the calculator, don't place the sign. Don't place that negative. We're going to see the use of that negative. Where is it used? Make sure the calculator is in degrees. Are you getting that? The calculator has to be in what? Degrees. It has to display a D up there, not R. If it is in radians, you're going to get a very long answer. Is that okay? Calculator has to be in degrees. Okay, so x equals to sine inverse of -3 over 4. when you place without the negative, please place just sine inverse of 3 over 4. We are going to see how that negative helps us. Is that okay? Just place the positive part. So you're going to get 48.6 degrees to one decimal place. 48.6 degrees. Now, when you get that answer, you come on this diagram of quadrants. Is that okay? They have told us that sin x was negative 3 over 4. So the angle is a negative. So where is sine a negative here on this diagram? So this angle we get first, the acute angle is always that angle in the first quadrant. So you have 48.6. Are you getting that? So what could be the next answer here? The answer here, you get it by following this. The angle here is 180 minus x. Is that okay? So just get 180 minus this 48.6 minus the angle in the first quadrants. Is that okay? So when you get 180 minus that answer, what are you going to get? Minus 180. You get something, you get any answer you are going to put here. So that will be the answer here. Then the answer you're going to get here, it is going to be 180. For it, you consider 180 plus x. Is that okay? So for it, I believe it's going to be something like 122.6. 128. So meaning that in the first quadrant, let me lab off this and I make a clear diagram, a big one. We have seen that here the angle is just x. Here it is 180 minus x. Here it is 180 plus x. In this quadrant is 360 minus x, where x is always the angle in the first quadrant or the acute angle. So it is 48.6 which we got. So when you subtract 180 from that, that will get something like 131.4 degrees. Then here when you add it, you get 228.6 degrees. Then from 360, here the angle will be what? Here the angle will be, you just subtract 48, that is going to be 300, say 11.4, something like that. Okay, so for us, our main interest is where sine is a negative. Here sine is a positive. We saw that. Also here sine is a positive. Here sine is a negative and here sine is a negative. So for us, we're going to take these angles where sine is a negative. So are you seeing the meaning, the use of the other sign on the other negative sign on the value of sine? That's where we use it. We come and it helps us to identify the angles. Have you got me? So now we can conclude that therefore x is going to be 228.6 degrees, 311.4 degrees. Those are the answers. So we ignore the other 48.6. Why? Because it is that in that quadrant sine is what? Sine is a positive, and where sine is what? Negative. So are you getting the reason why I'm concluding that these are the answers? You are going to understand, don't worry. Let me use another example here. Is that okay? The example here, solve the equation cos x equals to root 3 over 2. So root 3 over 2, we want to solve that. You're going to pass through this and you'll understand it, but for me, let me explain using this way. So if we have cos x equal to root 3 over 2, you see the sign is a positive, because I told you whenever there is no sign, the sign is what? Positive. So if I want to solve this, I will solve cos. Definitely x is going to be cos inverse of root 3 over what? Over 2. Are you getting that? So you come on this diagram. So root 3 over 2, the angle I told you, the angle you get first is always the angle here in the first quadrant. So here we have x, here we have 180 minus x, here we have 180 plus x. These are supposed to be in your head. Then here you have 360 minus x. So what is the x value here? Root 3 over 2. The cos inverse. Is it 60? Is it 30? Please, I want us to see that. We have, let us do cos inverse of root 3. Sorry, then we have root 3. I'm also placing something here, so I have root 3 over 2. So 30. So you have 30 degrees here, meaning the angle here is going to be 180 minus x, which is going to be 120. Then we are going to have the angle here 180 plus theta, which is going to be 210. Is that okay? So this is 150. Then we have the angle here 330. When we subtract, that's how we get that angle. We use these ones here to get the angles there, because the x is always the angle in the first quadrant, and that's what we get from here. So now we have our angles. We have the angles as this. In the first quadrant we have a 30, then here we have a 150, here we have 210, here we have 330, according to the angles we have got. Now we want to generalize what are the values of x for this equation. Remember, here cos is a positive, here cos is a negative, here cos is a negative, and here cos is a positive. Is that okay? Remember, we are still following the range from 0 to 360. Are you getting that? So where the angles we want, because they told us cos x initially it was root 3 over 2, which was a positive. So we want where cos is a what? Positive, meaning that the angles are going to take this one and this one. Are you explaining it clearly? Yes, I'm sure. Okay, so meaning we can conclude and say therefore our x is going to be 30 degrees and 330 degrees. Then we ignore the others. Have you got that? Yes, that is good. Okay, so that's why you're going to find that you have your angles. Someone is putting here 330 and 30. Are you getting that? Yes. So but for me, use the other explanation I'm using to understand it better. Let us consider this one now. Solve the equation such that we have from negative 180 to positive 180. Tan x is that. Is that okay? Tan x is negative root 3. So for you first to consider as if the range is positive, then you first get those angles first. Now let us first go and look at tan x if it is negative root 3. Negative root 3. So let us here solve. We are solving tan x equals to negative root 3, and we have said already that of course here x is going to be tan inverse of negative root 3, but I told you that negative, it helps us to identify which angles to take. Okay, so let us come on our diagram. So this one is just consider a positive. So far in the first quadrant is going to be 60 degrees. Don't put the negative when you are pressing at first. That this one here, the negative, only helps us to identify the angles. So you just press tan inverse of root 3. The angle you get is the angle in the first quadrant. Okay, then we have our angle here. It is 60 degrees. Is that okay? How do we get the angle here? 180 minus x, so it is 120 degrees. How do we get the angle here? It is 180 plus x, which is what? 240 degrees. Here we get us 360 minus x, so we are going to have 300 degrees. Is that okay? Okay, so but remember our tan is want where it is a negative. Here tan is a positive, here it is a negative, here it is a positive, and here it is a negative. Is that okay? Okay, so remember they have told us something. They have told us what? They have told us something, that they want us to use the range from 0. They want us to use the range from 0 up to 180, meaning that so far I'm going to ignore these angles because they are going to be outside the what? The range. Otherwise, if I was not to ignore, I would also have taken this 300 because tan is also negative there. But then for me, I'm interested in where tan is a negative. Is that okay? Tan is a what? A negative. But being a negative, also consider the range from this is from 0 degrees to 180 degrees. So what I'm going to do, we are going to now have which angles are in this range here. We have the 60 degrees and have the 180 degrees. Is that one okay? Yes. So in the other sense of remember, our range has a negative part. So this angle here, the first angle, is going to be a true angle if it is a negative. Is that okay? That's why you're going to take it. Then now this 120, we are taking it because it is between 0 and 180, but it is a negative. Are you getting that? So meaning that we are going to have our angles. For this case, x is going to be negative 160 degrees in the first quadrant, because we're taking this 60 in the negative side, because our range runs from negative 180 up to 180. Are you getting that? So meaning that also negative angles between this range, they can be taken. So we just attach a negative on that angle in the first quadrant. Then 120 is just an angle in the second quadrant where tan is a negative. Hope you have understood that. Okay. This is how we are getting these angles, please. I want you to note that. I want you to do for me this. Cos x and that sin x. I think you can do that now. Otherwise, I can first do that. It is between 0 and 360. I can solve for you sin x equals to negative 0.2. I can solve that. Is that okay? Such that I can give you some good exercise. Okay. So we have our sin x as negative 0.2. Then we want to solve and find the values of x. But they have given us that 0. In other words, x lies between 0 and 360. Okay, so we want to set our solution. So our x is going to be sine inverse of negative 0.2. I told you when you are pressing on the calculator initially, don't put the negative. And the negative helps us just to identify which angles to take. Is that okay? From the other diagram, we always draw to identify angles. And then besides that, for you, what you are supposed to consider most in the calculator has to be in radians, and in degrees. If you leave it in radians, you're going to get a wrong answer. Hope that one is okay. Okay, so when you try to place the angle there, which angle do you get for 0.2? Do you get 11? You get 11.5. It is 11.5 degrees. Now this answer, what you do, it is not the answer that we are taking. Please just come. It helps us to draw this diagram here. Are you getting that? So our x here, it is 11.5. Then we know how to get this angle here. It is 180 minus x, so it's going to be something like 168.5. Okay. Then we are going to have this answer as 180 plus x. It's going to be 191.5. Then what about the angle here? It is 360 minus x. So we're going to have 348.5, right? So you identify our trigonometric ratio was sine. Sine is positive here, it is positive here, it is negative here, and negative here. So where what did they tell us? They told us sin x was negative 0.2. So meaning our angles are going to take, that's where sine is what? Negative. Are you seeing how I'm identifying the angles to take? Meaning that I can have x as 191.5 and 348. So x is 191.5 and 348.5. And these angles are lying between 0 and 360. Is that okay? So this range also matters. If you find that one of the angles here is not lying between this range, you also discard that and leave it. Is that okay? Okay, and I want to assume you have also understood that. So that's how mainly we come upon to get that. Is that okay? That's what I've been finding, and I think now these ones are okay. I think that these answers now are coming true and they are now understandable. I want you to do for me this exercise. I want you to do for me the examples I've not done. Is that okay? Probably. Let me okay, do for you one more. Maybe this one, but I don't see any need even to do it. You have understood that. Just do proceed and do for me I'm going to that is the first case. For me, I've distinguished. Don't do these ones. Don't do these ones. I'm going to explain them in our following lesson. Is that okay? Okay. First of all, I want to give you this exercise. You do it for me. Do for me this number 1. Is that okay? You do for me this number 2. Find for me the angles in that range, and using the ranges they have given. You can do as many as possible. So if you want to get clear exercise, please just pause the video. You are going to clearly explain. Do what you can from here, but don't do this. Just stop here. Just stop here. Just stop on that. Then you're going to proceed with how to get the angles. When you understand that, then we proceed. Please, I want your feedback. If the work is okay, then you tell me. If you need some clear explanation, you also tell me. Also, thank you.